Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my mildly drunk review of Cyberpunk. I thought about doing this sober, but in the spirit of 2020 and the last 3 years of my life, fuck that. Oh shit, I swore in the first 20 seconds of a video I'm getting demonetized. It's all downhill from here. Anyway, where was I? Right, yeah, Cyberpunk. Honestly, I wasn't going to bother, but I kind of got fed up of everyone whining about it online. So here we are, whining, but drunk and with class, kind of. Let's do this.
Could definitely go for a drink.
We shall begin, dear reader, where all good stories begin. With the beginning. Now, speaking as someone with a fairly beefy fucking computer rig, although not as beefy as it could be, I can rather smugly say, the game runs fine for me. Kind of. We'll cut my drunken rambling up into segments with the good, the bad, and the goddamn beautiful. Because it is beautiful. This is sober me speaking right now. Editing this in post, I speak to you from beyond the bottle. There is a great many things wrong with Cyberpunk, but if you were to end this video here and not watch the rest of the nonsense, I'd implore you to take one thing away. It's a bloody good story, with some really good characters. Assuming you can run it on whatever you're using, aka not trying to shove the disc in the potato you got out of the backyard, then it is a terrific story-driven action game. But as an RPG, leaves a lot to be desired. Drunk Me compares it to watching a good movie, and I basically agree. It's a damn good interactive movie, with a main story that has multiple branching paths, optional choices, things that you can very easily miss, and consequences, although fairly scripted consequences. You can't go too far off the beaten path, because once you step outside of the player bubble, as Drunk Me coins it, you'll discover quickly that Night City is shallow. But I'll leave all of the bad stuff to Drunk Me. Because at the end of the day, I don't like being negative about this game. I'm a very logical and critical person, so I kind of can't help myself, especially when I'm drinking. This is flawed. Quite badly flawed in many areas. Yes, the launch was terrible. Yes, they should never have released it on last generation consoles. Yes, there are bugs. Yes, there are features that are just straight up missing that you'd expect to be there but aren't. Yes, the hype that surrounded this game for f***ing years is massively blown the entire thing out of proportion. It is also equally true that it is basically popular to shit all over this game at the moment. I've never been known for doing what's popular. I do whatever the bloody hell I want, as Drunk Me will no doubt show you. My verdict, if you go no further than this, is simply that it's a bloody great story, and a frickin' beautiful game, with a mountain of flaws which are mostly visual if you're running it on a decent rig. Because if you're running it on last-gen consoles, you're basically, to quote myself, fucked. Royally fucked. But that's CD Projekt Red's fucking fault. They should never have released it on last-gen to begin with. Anyway, I will leave you with Drunk Me. So, see you guys around.
Perhaps it is a Bakeneko.
Bakeneko. I know that word.
A
I don't remember what it is,
Bakeneko?
though.
What's that?
It is a cat spirit. It brings misfortune.
Now, we'll get into the saving grace of this game later, which is the story, but right now, let's talk about the bugs. Because let's be real, we're all here to talk about the bugs. Now, I didn't really experience them too much. I just had a couple of visual fucking things, which I'll show you guys, but I wasn't that bothered by them. I'm running on like a GTX 1080 and a frickin' i7 processor and not even using a solid state fucking drive. And the game ran relatively smoothly for me. 50 frames at worst, rarely ever dipped under 60. But this is not the experience of the vast majority. Or at least the vast majority of the loudest idiots on the internet, who are experiencing things that look completely fucking hilarious. My sneaking suspicion is, these people are running Cyberpunk on potatoes. They went out into their backyard, they got a fucking potato out of the ground, and they started shoving the fucking disc into the fucking potato. They were like, fucking fit, you bastard! I want to fucking play Cyberpunk! And before you knew it, their fucking cars were flying fucking everywhere and they were doing some ridiculously funny looking shit. I envy the potato people. I wish my game was as hilariously broken as their game is. But it wasn't. If you bought Cyberpunk on last gen, thinking it was going to look as good as the fucking trailers, you, sir, are an alcoholic. You can start drinking after you have the computer. That's what I did. And except for the visual / totally fucking hilarious bugs that Cyberpunk gives me, it was an extremely fun ride. So yeah, that's my life advice to you. Stop drinking, stop wasting your fucking money, buy a fucking decent fucking computer, and then get hopelessly drunk and play Cyberpunk. Wait, did I only enjoy Cyberpunk because I was drunk? No. That was 90 plus hours. I could have been drunk for 90 plus hours. Could I? Huh. I don't know, I need more booze. I'll be right back. A new bottle, a new chapter. Where were we? I'm not wearing pants. Why am I not wearing pants? My pants vanished in the mirror at one point, and then I was later knocked unconscious, taken to a doctor who proceeded to remove my pants while I was unconscious. And then when I came back around, my pants were back on. I don't know what happened there. Is that part of the story, or... And then I sort of went inside of Panam when she was driving, but we don't talk about that. That wasn't a bug as far as I'm concerned. That was just a good time. I like being inside a girl as much as the next guy, but this is going a bit too far, CG Product. This is going a bit too far. I fell through the world on one occasion because I tried ramming a dude in a car shop. I realized how gay that sounds, and my apologies. What happened? Did the car explode? On one occasion, my guns started to malfunction. What the? That was not me. I did not click the trigger button. Ah! Ah! It's not me! It is not me! I'm not touching everything. My hands are off the keyboard. Stop it! Stop it! On one mission, a police officer that was driving me around, a dude called River, he kind of ran over a hooker. Jesus Christ! Dude just straight up ran over a hooker. Dude just kept driving like it was nothing. It's an average fucking Tuesday. Maybe he runs over hookers all the time. Maybe it's not a bug. Maybe that's working as intended. I don't fucking know. So yeah, game working as intended. What can I say, guys? It just works. It just works.
And it just works, little lies, stunning shows, people buy, money flows, it just works.
I hope you enjoyed that, because it's never happening again. But you see the theme. All of these bugs are fucking hilarious. At no point did they impede the actual story or ruin my experience. I found them all incredibly funny. The story and the characters really are Cyberpunk's heart and soul. But the way I'm about to describe this may seem like a negative to some people, and a positive to others, perhaps. But it feels like you're being led through a movie. You are an active participant in a movie, rather than it being an RPG. But Cyberpunk still offers an immersive, interesting story that I really got into. The voice acting, with the exception of Male V, who just I didn't like. Seriously, I don't know if this is just me, but he sounds like the love child of Batman and Duke Nukem, mixed with some mob boss DNA thrown in there.
I'm V.
I'm Batman.
I'm V.
Hail to the king, baby.
I'm V.
It just doesn't sound genuine to me. Half the time V's walking down the damn street, I expect him to go, "I'm walking here!" But I digress. The writing, the voice acting, there's very rarely do I get emotionally invested into characters, and there were one or two characters in Cyberpunk during the stories that were very believable and very well done, in my opinion. Panam reminded me so much of one of my ex-girlfriends that it was fucking scary. And we still ended up being good mates, so you know. And I may have tried to get in her pants at one stage, but we don't talk about that. I actually got kind of emotional in the ending I picked. My heart bled for about 0.5 seconds, and that's saying a lot, okay? That doesn't happen. But the negative vibe I get with the story is that I don't feel like it's an RPG. There's branching paths that you can take. There's a lot of interesting decisions. Your dialogue choices can lead down different branching paths, but you always end up on the individual endings. It doesn't really have too big of an impact. It's like going to a freaking theme park, getting on a ride and going on it. It's a hell of a fucking ride, but I don't particularly feel like I have too much control over it. And it's not necessarily a feeling I complained about, but you exist within a player bubble of sorts. Everything reacts around you. The environment exists around you inside the bubble. The police will spawn inside of the bubble because outside of it is nothing. Everything exists within the immediate vicinity of your character. It's very much like it's on rails at an amusement park. It's still a hell of a ride, but it does feel that way. Hell, it didn't even feel like that when I was playing. It's only looking back at all of the footage that I've recorded of the game that I get the sense that that is the experience that I went through. I didn't even notice it at the time. I was enjoying myself so much that I never even really thought about it. I never gave it too much thought. There wasn't any scrutinizing of it. But if I take a step back from the game and I really look at it, you realize there's nothing too particularly revolutionary. You realize that outside of your little player bubble, there's fucking nothing happening. There's no real consequences. If I kill everyone in my apartment block, surely there'd be some kind of consequences. That's bad. V wouldn't do that. But if V does do that, I can just walk back into my apartment, immediately lose all of my police wanted level, assuming the cops aren't just dead and give up, and then walk out of my apartment an hour later, after taking a nap, and everyone will be respawned. And that's where I realized the bubble exists. You're there for the story, you're there for the characters, you're there for how absolutely beautiful Night City is. At least when you're not running it on a potato. But with the exceptions of diverging paths that sort of branch off from the main line and end in like one of 4 or 5 ways, the decisions you make, they're decisions, they're choices, but ultimately they lead to the same direction. Which isn't necessarily bad, it's just more like an interactive movie than an RPG. I don't want to say it's bad, it's not bad at all. I had great fun with it. But if you really take a step back to properly critique it, you realize it's not too special. And I think that's a side effect of all the overhyping of the game and all the bullshit, because everyone's been anticipating it for so long and they hyped it up to be this amazing thing. This isn't as good as everyone was making it out to be. It's still good, but it's not God's gift to mankind. It is not the revolution of RPGs and open worlds. The potential is there. It certainly laid the groundwork for something that could have been like, if you give this game another 2 years of development without the corona nonsense, then this could be something that was truly freaking amazing. But I would not call this game truly freaking amazing. I'd call it good. Like a solid 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, like, easily. But I would not give it 10 out of 10 if I bothered with rudimentary frickin' scoring. Taking a critical view of this, it is not a bad game. At least if you're not running on a potato out in your back garden. CG Projekt Red shouldn't have done quite so much hyping up about it, and they probably definitely shouldn't have released on past-gen consoles. That was completely a mistake. And they probably shouldn't have said some things that they did say that hyped it up as being something that it wasn't. Hindsight, ladies and gentlemen, is a fickle bitch. But the story is good. The characters are good. I had fun for 90 plus hours and had no fucking complaints other than that one time I wanted to fucking throw my monitor through my window because I couldn't get past that one mission. Ultimately, it's an extremely fun game if you can run it. If you have a potato, you're fucked. Because Cyberpunk has a shitload of potential and misses the mark in a great deal of areas, which could have made it easily the best game of like a fucking generation. Anyway, I need more booze. Booze, glorious booze. Okay, I have another bottle. Outside of Cyberpunk's patented player bubble, copyright, you'll find that the seedy, naked underbelly of Night City is surprisingly fucking empty. Although a lot of the side gigs, and I say side gigs with frickin' air quotes as I drink from my fucking bottle, a lot of these side gigs could essentially just be considered optional main missions, and those ones are like very well written. Some of them are very interesting, but there's about 80% of all of these side objectives that are scattered across Night City that insist upon you going to point A to slaughter freaking B and then finishing the mission. And there's no consequence for any of these filler activities at all. And it's very abundantly obvious when everything you do only affects everything in your immediate vicinity, which is the player bubble. And it never became more apparent to me that nothing I did outside of the main mission really mattered or had any consequence whatsoever, as when I found the area in Pacifica Beach, where a bunch of the voodoo boys are lined up the entire coastline. You can just slaughter them completely, and they will respawn behind you whenever they exit your bubble. So you can just slaughter them, move slightly to the left, turn around, slaughter them again, and rinse and repeat over and over and over again. Well, there must be some kind of, like, consequence to this. Maybe I've pissed off the voodoo boys. Maybe they don't like me anymore. No, absolutely fucking nothing happens. They just keep respawning, and that's it. It's static. That's just the consistent state of existence that exists. And it's at that point when you realize, why is that a thing? Why do we not have more depth for the gangs? None of them matter at all. Just, there's no consequence. There's no story development. Everything's static outside of the player bubble. If you wander off the beaten track, which is really sad because it's very much like they set the stage for something that could have been fucking amazing, but falls short on a hell of a lot of levels. It doesn't feel alive. It's a bloody beautiful city, arguably perhaps one of the best fucking cities I've ever seen in a game ever. I love driving around the damn thing. Not in cars so much, but motorcycles are quite fun to drive around. The cars are terrible, I won't get into that too much. But there could have been so much more. Customization alone, as hyped up and massive as it was all said to be, is extremely disappointing in Cyberpunk. For something you'd think would be as equally extremely obvious to put into the game, it's basically non-existent. You can't change your hair, you can't really do much in the way of cybernetics to change your body, can't change the color of your guns, can't change your cars. Just really basic crap that's in games like GTA since like GTA fucking 3. Of the like original Saints Row, I could do more customization in that than I could in Cyberpunk. Both ancient frickin' games and ancient titles that have features you'd expect to be in Cyberpunk that just aren't. Like par of the course shit that you'd expect from an open world RPG set in a city, it just isn't there. But I've had the realization that all of that is outside of the story/player bubble. That's stuff you expect from an open world RPG set in a giant city. It isn't there because this is not an open world RPG. It's more a story-driven action looter shooter that just happens to exist within a very beautiful looking city that just happens to have side objectives that fill up the gaps. Essentially, imagine that they put Ubisoft in charge of like organizing Night City and they just put a bunch of freaking watchtowers around and that's more or less what you got. The guys that made The Witcher made all the actually decent stories within Night City, and there are plenty of them, but then they needed to fill up everything outside of the story bubble, and they were like, well, fuck me, we're strapped for time, we're getting death threats, what do we do, lads? Let's get Ubisoft in here, they're good at filling open worlds with complete bullshit. But jokes aside, the stage is set, the open world exists, but it's been filled by shit that is half-baked. And frankly, I can't wait for modders to just fill in the gaps at this stage. If you let the modding community take this over, they will fill that fucking city with so much amazing shit that in a year, I guarantee Cyberpunk will be a fucking amazing game, purely because of all the modded content. Or CD will fill it themselves, ideally with some free DLC. I highly suspect we will be getting a lot of free DLC in 2021 to make up for the complete clusterfuck that has been the launch. Time will tell. I don't have any doubts whatsoever that this game will be twice, fucking 3 times, 4 times as amazing in a year. Be it from CD releasing updates and patches and free shit, or just from the community taking over and fixing everything, essentially. Time will tell. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Cyberpunk 2077 is a good game. If you're not running it on a potato from your back garden, at least, it's a good game. If you are running it on a potato, you're shit out of luck. I'd sympathize with you, but I'd be lying if I said I gave a shit. The main story is incredibly enjoyable. The characters are believable, the writing's great, the majority of the voice acting is very good as well. The gunplay is adequate, even very fun at times. The driving could use a lot of work. I definitely wouldn't suggest using cars, they're dreadful, at least if you're going fast, but I personally just used a motorbike and got handed the controls and we were fine. Ignoring the bugs as something that I don't doubt CG Projekt will frickin' patch, the game is exceptionally good. However, it is, for all of its incredible potential, missing a shitload of features that could be in the game but simply aren't. The world could feel so much more alive than it does. And that could be changed with features that are so obvious that it almost feels like the developers were rushing. And perhaps they were. I haven't touched on the developer crunch bullshit or the death threats people were fucking sending them. Frankly, I watched from the sidelines as everyone started flinging their shit around Cyberpunk and sort of sat here drinking like, good lord, this is what humanity's become. There's a reason I lost my faith in it a long time ago. But I digress. The game suffered from, I think, a rushed, freaking messy-ass development. I don't know whether or not pressure from fans, or pressure from stockholders, or pressure because of Corona, or pressure because of crunch time. There's some story behind the scenes here that has to explain how things turned out. And I don't think this is the disaster that everyone is fleeing their shit around the internet and making it out to be. Because it is a good game if you can run it fucking properly. It's a good fucking game if you don't have a goddamn potato. My personal issue with it is that it could have been a fucking amazing game, but it isn't. It's good. Bordering on great. I had great fun playing the story and going through the campaign. But it could have been something so much more. So much more. The stage was set, and I can't help but feel that if they'd given it another year of development, things could have been so much different. But at the same time, you have to look realistically at the world and think, what kind of goddamn fucking shit show would have happened if CD Projekt Red had turned around and went, we need another year? Can you imagine the fucking shit show? The storm of monkey feces being thrown around the internet by a bunch of virgins in the fucking basements, screaming and whining like little bitches, if CD Projekt Red had came out, been honest, and said, we need another year to make this fucking perfect. The internet would have lost its collective shit. But enough about the stupidity of the average individual. Ultimately, my verdict on Cyberpunk 2077 is quite simple. It's a damn good game if you're not running on a potato from your fucking back garden. It is not everything the internet has hyped it up to be for fucking years. And frankly, between you and me, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think the game was ever going to live up to the giant mountain of cocaine hype that the fucking internet made it out to be. But it is not a bad game. It is not Fallout 76. It is not Anthem. It is not some of the complete and utter fucking dumpster fire, piss-take corporate cash grabs that we've had throughout 2020. Fuck me, I'm starting to sound like Johnny. Look, my point is, it's a good game. If you can run it correctly, it's a good game. I'm not excusing the developer decisions like releasing it on last-gen consoles as acceptable. It is not. It was clearly a fucking stupid mistake. But that doesn't make the game bad. That makes that fucking decision bad. That makes last-gen consoles fucking bad. The bugs will be patched. I'm not particularly fucking bothered about those. But that stuff aside, the game is, in many areas, lacking. One could say a disappointment. It could have been so much better than it is. And that is probably one of the saddest things of 2020. Other than all of the dead people from Corona. And on that fucking cheery-ass note, ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you with the end of my Cyberpunk Drunken Ramblings review. If you can run the damn thing, and you aren't a twat, then it's a good game! I should do more of these reviews. Insulting people is definitely the way to get them to watch my stuff. What do I care? Nobody watches my Cyberpunk reviews.
It's perfect. All great, Panam. We're going home.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and click on that stupid little notification bell thing that doesn't really need to be there but YouTube insists upon, in order to keep up to date with my videos, as if subscribing didn't already mean that you wanted that. What? I'm not salty. I love you, Google. Please don't demonetize me. For the love of God, send me money. YouTube are going to demonetize me and I haven't eaten in a week.